The crimson horizon of Mars stretches endlessly across our screens, a familiar sight that's comforted astronomers for decades. But on October 3rd, 2025, something changed. Something that would shatter every assumption we've held about the visitors drifting through the darkness between worlds. What started as routine tracking of humanity's third confirmed interstellar guest has spiraled into a mystery that's keeping the world's brightest minds awake at night. The data streaming back from our Mars orbiters isn't just unusual, and the implications of it's impossible what we're discovering about Object 3I Atlas are forcing us to ask a question that no one in the scientific community wants to voice publicly. What if we're not tracking one visitor? What if there are more? Tonight, we're diving deep into the anomalies multiplying around this cosmic wanderer. Because what our instruments are detecting near the red planet suggests we might be dealing with something far more complex than a simple chunk of ice and rock from another star system. But first, let me paint you the picture of how this all began. When 3I Atlas was first spotted streaking across Chilean skies last July, it seemed straightforward enough. Sure, it was moving fast, clocking over 200,000 kilometers per hour relative to our Sun. And yes, its hyperbolic trajectory clearly marked it as an interstellar interloper. But after the excitement of discovering Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019, the astronomical community thought they had these cosmic nomads figured out. Here's where things get interesting. While most researchers focused on the obvious stuff, spectroscopic analysis, trajectory calculations, brightness measurements, a handful of observational teams were quietly documenting something else entirely. Subtle patterns in the data that didn't quite fit the standard playbook for how interstellar objects should behave. Dr. Elena Martinez at the European Southern Observatory was among the first to notice the discrepancies. Her team had been running routine thermal models trying to predict how 3I Atlas would respond to solar heating as it approached the inner solar system. The calculations were straightforward, based on decades of comet physics research that had worked flawlessly for countless other objects. But 3I Atlas refused to cooperate with their predictions. The object maintained chemical signatures that defied explanation. While normal comets show predictable changes in their gas emissions as different materials reach sublimation temperatures, this visitor displayed remarkable stability. The carbon dioxide to water ratio remained locked at impossible levels, as if something was actively managing the outgassing process. Then came the Mars encounter data, and everything changed. Multiple spacecraft orbiting Mars were positioned perfectly to observe 3I Atlas from angles impossible to achieve from Earth. The European Space Agency's Mars Express, NASA's MAVEN orbiter, and several other platforms turned their instruments toward this mysterious visitor as it swept past at a distance of just 29 million kilometers. What they recorded has fundamentally challenged our understanding of what interstellar objects are supposed to look like. The polarimetry measurements alone should have been enough to raise red flags across the astronomical community. When light scatters off dust particles in a comet's atmosphere, it creates distinctive signatures that reveal information about grain size, composition, and formation history. It's a technique that's been used successfully on hundreds of solar system comets. 3. I-Atlas produced polarization patterns that don't exist in any database. The negative polarization characteristics reached depths approaching -3% before inverting around 17 degrees of phase angle. This combination of intensity and behavior has never been documented in any natural object we've studied. The microstructure of dust grains required to create such signatures would need formation or processing under conditions that simply don't exist anywhere in our solar system. But the polarization anomalies were just the beginning of what made the Mars flyby data so unsettling. The thermal management capabilities displayed by this object operate with efficiency that approaches theoretical perfection, as 3I Atlas rotated through its 8-hour period, different regions should have experienced dramatic temperature swings as they moved in and out of direct sunlight. Every small body we've ever studied shows these predictable thermal cycles. Instead, surface temperatures varied by less than 12 degrees Celsius across the entire visible hemisphere. This level of thermal stability requires either internal heat sources or sophisticated temperature regulation systems that can redistribute energy faster than solar radiation can create gradients. The physics demands either exotic material properties or active thermal management on a scale we've never encountered. The spectroscopic revelations get even stranger when you dig into the details. High-resolution analysis revealed molecular signatures that shouldn't coexist in any single object. Carbon dioxide emissions showed formation temperatures exceeding 2000 Kelvin, the kind of molecular fingerprints you'd expect from stellar atmospheres or explosive stellar events. Simultaneously, trace water vapor displayed isotopic ratios indicating formation in environments colder than 20 Kelvin, temperatures that only exist in the darkest regions of interstellar molecular clouds. It's as if someone collected samples from across the galaxy and assembled them into a single object. The trajectory mechanics add another layer of impossibility to this puzzle. Despite clear evidence of active outgassing, with visible coma development and dust production, orbital analysts detected no measurable non-gravitational acceleration in the object's path. This violates fundamental physics as we understand it. When comets vent gas and dust into space, those escaping materials carry momentum. Newton's third law demands equal and opposite reaction forces that slightly alter the comet's trajectory in detectable ways. Every active comet we've studied shows these effects, so 3I Atlas appears immune to them. The object vents massive amounts of material while following a purely gravitational path with no detectable deviations. Either momentum conservation doesn't apply here, or the material is being expelled in perfectly symmetrical patterns that produce zero net force. But here's where the story takes a turn that has mission controllers examining their data with growing unease. During the critical hours of Mars encounter, something unprecedented occurred that has forced space agencies to confront possibilities no one wanted to consider. At precisely 1423 UTC, when 3I Atlas reached its point of closest approach to the red planet, all three spacecraft monitoring the encounter simultaneously went dark. The communications blackout lasted exactly 17 minutes. This wasn't equipment failure or solar interference. The signal disruption was surgically precise, targeting only the specific frequencies used for deep space communications while leaving all other electromagnetic bands completely unaffected. Mars Express, MAVEN, and the Trace Gas Orbiter all use different protocols, different frequencies, different transmission schedules, yet they lost contact with Earth at exactly the same moment. The technical requirements for such targeted electromagnetic interference exceed anything in our current understanding of space physics. To selectively disrupt specific frequency bands while leaving others untouched requires detailed knowledge of human communication systems and real-time signal processing capabilities that operate across interplanetary distances. When communications resumed at 1440 UTC, the data downloads revealed something that has researchers questioning everything they thought they understood about interstellar visitors. During those 17 minutes of enforced silence, every scientific instrument aboard the Mars orbiters had been functioning perfectly. The spacecraft hadn't malfunctioned. They had been deliberately prevented from transmitting their observations to Earth. The high-resolution images that finally arrived showed surface features that don't match any natural formation process we've catalogued. Instead of the irregular, cratered terrain expected from billions of years of cosmic weathering, the photographs revealed geometric structures with mathematical precision. Hexagonal formations arranged in nested configurations that follow crystallographic principles. Surface patterns that display symmetries found in advanced materials, science, rather than geological processes. features that appear engineered rather than evolved. The spectroscopic data collected during the blackout period revealed elemental arrangements that challenge our understanding of how matter behaves in space environments. Materials organized in molecular configurations that don't occur naturally, with isotopic signatures suggesting artificial synthesis rather than stellar formation. But perhaps most unsettling of all, the electromagnetic monitoring conducted during those critical 17 minutes detected something that has forced intelligence analysts to expand their theoretical frameworks for understanding what might be possible in terms of cosmic surveillance. The jamming wasn't random interference or broadband disruption. It demonstrated selective signal processing that required intimate knowledge of human communication protocols and encryption methods. The interference patterns showed evidence of real-time analysis and targeted countermeasures against systems that should have been secure. And that's when the truly disturbing implications began to emerge. If 3I Atlas possessed such sophisticated knowledge of human technology, if it could selectively jam our most advanced communication systems while simultaneously analyzing their content, then the 17-minute blackout might not have been about preventing observation. It might have been about preventing us from observing something else entirely. Something that was happening near Mars during those crucial moments when our eyes were forced closed and our instruments fell silent. The data gaps in our observational record create a blind spot that agencies dot Mars. When you examine the orbital mechanics involved, the timing becomes from documenting whatever was occurring in the space around 17 minutes, when the most sophisticated monitoring, even more suspicious. The blackout occurs haunting researchers across multiple space equipment humanity has ever deployed, was actively prevented precisely when 3I Atlas reached optimal positioning for any secondary objects or phenomena to approach Mars from directions that would normally be invisible from Earth-based observation. The geometric alignment created a perfect observational shadow, a cone of space where additional visitors could have maneuvered without detection by our ground-based telescopes. The implications are staggering because they suggest coordination rather than coincidence. Strategic timing that accounts for Earth's observational capabilities and limitations. Planning that demonstrates understanding of our technological blind spots and how to exploit them. As we piece together the fragmentary data from those 17 minutes, patterns are emerging that point toward possibilities the scientific community has been reluctant to discuss openly. But the evidence is becoming impossible to ignore, and the questions it raises will fundamentally challenge our understanding of what's really happening in the darkness near Mars. The silence from mission control stretched far beyond those 17 minutes. In the days following the Mars encounter, a disturbing pattern began to emerge across multiple space agencies that has forced us to confront possibilities that challenge every assumption about how interstellar visitors should behave. Ground-based telescopes positioned to track 3I Atlas after its Mars flyby began reporting anomalies that don't appear in any textbook. The object's brightness variations showed periodicities that had nothing to do with its rotation or distance from the Sun. Instead, the fluctuations seemed to correlate with Earth's position in ways that suggested active monitoring of our planet's location and orientation. Dr. Sarah Chen at the Mauna Kea Observatory was among the first to notice the correlation. Her team had been conducting routine photometry measurements, tracking how 3I Atlas reflected sunlight as it continued its journey through the outer solar system. The brightness changes should have followed predictable patterns based on the object's tumbling motion and changing geometry relative to our line of sight. Instead, they discovered something that sent chills through the astronomical community. The brightness fluctuations were synchronized with Earth's 24-hour rotational period with precision that exceeded coincidence by astronomical margins. As our planet turned, presenting different faces to space, 3I Atlas responded with corresponding changes in its apparent luminosity. The correlation was so precise that Chen's team could predict the object's brightness variations simply by knowing Earth's orientation. Natural objects don't maintain timing relationships with planets they're flying past unless they're tidally locked, which is impossible for something on a hyperbolic escape trajectory. The synchronization implied active tracking of Earth's position and real-time adjustment of the object's characteristics to maintain the correlation. But the brightness anomalies were just the first indication that something far more complex was unfolding in the space around Mars. Radio telescope arrays that had been monitoring 3I Atlas since its discovery began detecting electromagnetic signatures that evolved far beyond the simple narrowband emissions originally observed. The signals now showed structured modulation patterns that suggested information transfer rather than natural plasma processes. The transmissions contained mathematical progressions, prime number sequences, and geometric relationships that appeared intentionally encoded rather than accidentally produced by natural phenomena. Most disturbing, the emission patterns showed adaptive characteristics that responded to terrestrial radio communications in real time. When Earth-based telescopes transmitted signals toward 3I Atlas, the object's response was immediate and unmistakable. The emission patterns changed within minutes of each transmission, showing correlation coefficients that ruled out random variation. The responses didn't follow any recognizable communication protocols, but they demonstrated clear cause and effect relationships that suggested active monitoring and deliberate signal generation. The implications were becoming impossible to dismiss. Whatever 3I Atlas represented, it was listening to our transmissions and responding with increasingly sophisticated communication attempts. Then came the trajectory data that transformed speculation into genuine alarm. Precision tracking from multiple deep space monitoring stations revealed that 3I Atlas wasn't simply coasting away from Mars on a predictable gravitational path. Instead, the object was executing subtle course corrections that required thrust capabilities and navigational accuracy exceeding anything in human space technology. The maneuvers weren't random or chaotic, like you'd expect from asymmetric outgassing. They were coordinated, purposeful, and timed with mathematical precision. More unsettling still, the trajectory adjustments appeared designed to maintain optimal communication geometry with Earth, while extending the object's residence time within our observational range. Dr. Michael Rodriguez at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory has been analyzing these course corrections using every propulsion model available to human science. His calculations reveal thrust characteristics that violate fundamental assumptions about how objects can maneuver in space without visible propulsion systems. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible to sustain. To maintain the observed acceleration patterns requires power generation capabilities that dwarf anything in human technology. Yet infrared observations showed no thermal signatures consistent with conventional propulsion, no exhaust plumes, no measurable mass ejection that could account for the momentum transfers involved. The object appeared to be moving according to principles that don't exist in our physics textbooks. But perhaps most disturbing of all was what happened when researchers began examining archival data from previous Mars missions, looking for similar anomalies that might have been overlooked or misinterpreted. What they discovered has forced intelligence analysts to reassess decades of space surveillance data, withered communications during the fresh eyes, and growing concern, interference patterns that disrupt. The electromagnetic 3I Atlas encounter weren't unique. Similar selective jamming events had been occurring regularly throughout the history of Mars exploration, always dismissed as equipment malfunctions or solar activity. The pattern had been hidden in plain sight, scattered across multiple missions and decades of operational records. Every major Mars mission had experienced brief communication blackouts during critical operational phases. The Mariner program, Viking landers, Mars Global Surveyor, Mars Odyssey, the list went on. Each incident had been analyzed in isolation, attributed to natural causes or technical failures, then filed away and forgotten. But when examined as a collective pattern, the blackouts revealed coordination that spanned decades, strategic timing that coincided with optimal orbital alignments and maximum observational opportunities. interference events that occurred precisely when our instruments were positioned to detect anomalous activities in Martian space. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory has been correlating these historical interference events with asteroid and comet databases, searching for patterns that might explain the systematic nature of the disruptions. Her analysis reveals something that has forced space agencies to confront possibilities they'd never seriously considered. The communication blackouts correlate with the passages of objects initially classified as routine asteroids or comets. Visitors that received minimal scientific attention because their orbital characteristics and spectral signatures appeared mundane. Objects that passed through the inner solar system without generating significant interest from the astronomical community. Until now. When you re-examine these overlooked visitors through the lens of what we've learned about 3I Atlas, disturbing patterns emerge. Trajectory characteristics that showed subtle but consistent deviations from purely gravitational paths. Spectroscopic signatures that contained anomalous features dismissed as observational uncertainties. Rotation states that displayed stability exceeding what natural tumbling should produce. The evidence suggests that 3I Atlas might not be an isolated phenomenon, but rather the first member of a larger population that we've been systematically failing to recognize. The statistical implications are staggering. If even a small percentage of the objects we've classified as routine asteroids or comets actually represent artificial visitors, then the space around Earth could be far more crowded with intelligence than we've ever imagined. A hidden population of observers that have been studying our technological development while remaining carefully concealed among the natural debris of the solar system. The camouflage would be nearly perfect. Artificial objects designed to mimic natural asteroids or comets would be indistinguishable from genuine space rocks using conventional observational techniques. Only detailed analysis using the most sophisticated instruments would reveal the subtle signatures that distinguish engineered systems from natural formations. But the concealment might be breaking down. The increasingly obvious anomalies displayed by 3I Atlas could represent a deliberate transition from covert observation to open contact. A gradual revelation designed to prepare humanity for the reality that we've been under surveillance by intelligences whose capabilities exceed our understanding. The electromagnetic evolution of 3I Atlas supports this interpretation. The signals have progressed from simple acknowledgement patterns to complex information structures that appear designed for educational purposes. Mathematical concepts, physical constants, and scientific principles transmitted in formats that match human comprehension levels, while gradually introducing advanced concepts. It's as if something is attempting to expand human knowledge through carefully structured data transmission, a pedagogical approach that suggests long-term planning and educational objectives extending far beyond simple communication acknowledgement. The technological demonstrations continue escalating in sophistication. Recent observations have documented course corrections that require sustained thrust over extended periods, electromagnetic emissions that suggest power generation capabilities exceeding anything in human technology, and thermal management systems that operate with efficiency approaching theoretical perfection. These aren't the characteristics of passive natural objects drifting through space. They're the signatures of active systems with capabilities that challenge our understanding of what's possible in terms of engineering and physics applications. As monitoring stations worldwide maintain constant surveillance of 3I Atlas, tracking its every movement and analyzing its every transmission, one question haunts researchers across the globe. If this visitor represents technologies that exceed human capabilities by such dramatic margins, what does that suggest about the civilization that created it? And more importantly, how many others might be out there, watching from the shadows, waiting for humanity to develop the sophistication necessary to recognize what has been hiding among the stars all along? The answers to these questions will determine not just our understanding of this particular cosmic visitor, but our entire conception of humanity's place in a universe that may be far more populated and far more aware of our existence than we ever dared imagine. The implications become even more distinct happened in the Weeksping when you examine what following the Mars encounter. Deep space tracking stations positioned across 6 continents began detecting something that has forced mission planners to expand their theoretical frameworks for understanding how interstellar objects can behave. So 3I Atlas wasn't alone anymore. On November 3rd, 2025, Dr. James Patterson at the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex noticed something in his tracking data that made him run the calculations 3 times before believing what his instruments were telling him. The electromagnetic signatures emanating from 3I Atlas had evolved beyond simple communication attempts into what appeared to be coordination signals. The object was transmitting structured data packets at regular intervals using frequencies and modulation techniques that suggested network communication rather than broadcast messaging. More unsettling still, sensitive radio receivers began detecting response signals originating from locations where no known objects should exist. The response patterns showed up as faint, electromagnetic echoes coming from empty regions of space near Mars, signals that appeared to acknowledge and respond to transmissions from 3I Atlas with timing precision that eliminated the possibility of random interference or instrumental artifacts. When Patterson's team triangulated the source locations using multiple receiver arrays, they discovered something that sent shockwaves through the deep space surveillance community. The response signals were originating from at least 7 distinct positions arranged in what appeared to be a coordinated formation, extending across millions of kilometers of Martian orbital space. The geometric arrangement wasn't random. The positions formed mathematical relationships that suggested systematic deployment rather than accidental clustering. Whatever was responding to 3I Atlas had been positioned with strategic precision that maximized coverage while minimizing detection probability from Earth-based observers. Dr. Lisa Chen at the Very Large Array in New Mexico began correlating these electromagnetic anomalies with subtle variations in Mars orbital mechanics that had been dismissed as measurement uncertainties. Her analysis revealed gravitational perturbations that corresponded exactly with the locations where response signals were originating. The gravitational signatures were incredibly faint, barely detectable above measurement noise, but they indicated the presence of objects with masses ranging from hundreds to thousands of tons distributed throughout Mars' orbital vicinity. Objects that should have been easily visible to conventional telescopes if they reflected sunlight like normal asteroids or space debris. The absence of optical signatures combined with detectable gravitational effects suggested something that has never been documented in solar system observations. Objects with substantial mass that remained invisible across the electromagnetic spectrum. Technology that could somehow prevent the reflection or emission of detectable radiation while maintaining physical presence, substantial enough to influence orbital mechanics. The camouflage capabilities implied by these observations exceed anything in human military technology by margins that make comparison meaningless. Whatever was hiding near Mars possessed stealth systems that operated with effectiveness approaching theoretical perfection. But the concealment was beginning to break down in ways that suggested deliberate revelation rather than accidental discovery. On November 18th, thermal imaging satellites detected brief infrared signatures that appeared and disappeared within minutes at locations corresponding to the gravitational anomalies. The thermal events showed characteristics that didn't match any natural phenomena, displaying temperature profiles that suggested controlled energy release rather than solar heating or radioactive decay. The infrared signatures appeared simultaneously across multiple locations, showing coordination that ruled out random thermal events. Whatever was generating these signatures possessed communication systems that could synchronize activities across interplanetary distances with precision measured in seconds rather than minutes. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez at NASA's Infrared Telescope Facility has been analyzing these thermal anomalies using every detection technique available to astronomical science. Her measurements indicate energy release patterns that suggest power generation capabilities operating at efficiency levels that exceed current human technology by orders of magnitude. The thermal signatures show no correlation with solar illumination or orbital position, indicating internal power sources that operate independently of environmental energy inputs. The power generation systems appear capable of sustained operation over extended periods while maintaining precise temperature control across vast distances. More disturbing still, the thermal events began showing responsiveness to human observation attempts. When infrared telescopes focused on specific locations, the thermal signatures would shift to adjacent positions or disappear entirely, reappearing minutes later at different coordinates. The evasive behavior suggested active monitoring of human surveillance activities and real-time countermeasures designed to prevent detailed observation. The electromagnetic landscape around Mars has transformed from passive observation to active electronic warfare. Signals intelligence analysts monitoring the region report increasing sophistication in the communication protocols being exchanged between 3I Atlas and its hidden companions. The data transmissions have evolved from simple acknowledgement patterns to complex information structures that suggest strategic planning and tactical coordination. The signals contain encrypted elements that resist analysis using conventional cryptographic techniques, indicating communication security that operates according to principles beyond current human understanding. Dr. Robert Kim at the National Security Agency's Signals Intelligence Division describes the encryption characteristics as unlike anything in terrestrial databases. The security protocols appear to use mathematical frameworks that extend beyond conventional cryptography into areas that human mathematics has only begun to explore. The communication patterns also show evidence of adaptive learning. The encryption methods evolve in response to human analysis attempts, suggesting artificial intelligence systems that can assess cryptographic vulnerabilities and develop countermeasures in real time. The communication security becomes more sophisticated with each human attempt to decode the transmissions. But perhaps most unsettling of all is what happened when researchers attempted to map the complete extent of whatever network was operating in Mars' orbital space. Gravitational wave detectors that had been monitoring for exotic propulsion signatures began recording subtle disturbances that suggested movement patterns extending far beyond the initial detection zones. The gravitational signatures indicated objects transitioning between positions with velocities that required propulsion capabilities, exceeding anything in human space technology. The movement patterns showed tactical characteristics that suggested defensive positioning in response to increased human surveillance. As Earth-based telescopes intensified their monitoring of Mars' orbital space, the gravitational anomalies shifted to locations that provided better concealment while maintaining communication connectivity with 3I Atlas. The tactical repositioning demonstrated strategic thinking that operated according to principles familiar from human military doctrine, while employing technologies that exceeded human capabilities by centuries. Whatever intelligence was coordinating these movements possessed understanding of surveillance countermeasures, combined with propulsion and stealth technologies that made evasion effortless. Dr. Maria Santos at the European Space Agency's Space Situational Awareness Center has been tracking these movement patterns using computational models designed to predict orbital mechanics for natural objects. Her simulations consistently fail to reproduce the observed behavior using conventional gravitational physics, indicating propulsion systems that operate according to principles not covered in standard orbital mechanics. The maneuvering capabilities suggest technologies that can generate thrust without visible exhaust signatures or thermal anomalies. The objects appear capable of sustained acceleration over extended periods without depleting fuel reserves or generating detectable electromagnetic emissions associated with conventional propulsion systems. The energy requirements for such capabilities demand power generation systems that exceed human technology by factors that make meaningful comparison impossible. Yet whatever network is operating near Mars maintains these advanced systems while simultaneously avoiding detection by the most sophisticated surveillance equipment humanity has ever deployed. The concealment is so effective that researchers have begun questioning whether similar networks might be operating throughout the solar system without human awareness. The techniques being employed near Mars could easily hide substantial populations of artificial objects in the asteroid belt, around the gas giants, or in the outer solar system where observational coverage remains limited. The implications extend far beyond the immediate question of what's happening near Mars. If advanced civilizations possess stealth technologies that can render substantial objects invisible to human detection methods, then our understanding of solar system demographics could be fundamentally incorrect. The space around Earth could be populated by observation platforms and monitoring systems that have been studying human technological development for decades or centuries without our knowledge. Technologies that exceed our capabilities by sufficient margins to remain undetectable until they choose to reveal themselves. The gradual disclosure pattern exhibited by 3I Atlas and its hidden companions suggests a carefully managed revelation process. Rather than sudden dramatic contact, we appear to be witnessing a staged introduction designed to allow human civilization to adapt gradually to the reality of advanced alien presence in our cosmic neighborhood. The educational transmissions, technological demonstrations, and systematic revelation of capabilities all suggest strategic planning that operates on timescales measured in human generations rather than immediate tactical objectives. Whatever intelligence is behind these activities has been preparing for this contact scenario far longer than humans have been capable of recognizing what was happening. As monitoring stations worldwide maintain constant surveillance of the evolving situation near Mars, every new piece of data confirms that humanity stands at the threshold of the most significant discovery in our species' history. The question is no longer whether we're alone in the universe, but rather how long we've been under observation by intelligences whose capabilities challenge our understanding of what's possible in terms of technology and strategic planning. The hidden swarm near Mars represents just the visible edge of what may be a vast network of artificial objects that have been operating throughout our solar system while remaining carefully concealed from human detection. The universe is revealing itself to be far more populated, far more strategically sophisticated, and far more aware of human activities than we ever imagined possible. The revelations keep multiplying faster than our instruments can process them. What started as tracking a single mysterious visitor has spiraled into documenting what appears to be the most sophisticated surveillance operation in human history. And the deeper we dig into the data streaming back from Mars, the more we realize we've been looking at this entire phenomenon backwards. We thought we were studying 3I Atlas, but it has been studying us. The electromagnetic intercepts collected over the past month paint a picture that should terrify anyone who understands the implications. Dr. Catherine Walsh at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory has been analyzing the signal architecture using every cryptographic technique available to human intelligence agencies. What she's discovered challenges every assumption about how advanced civilizations might approach first contact scenarios. The transmissions aren't just random communications between hidden objects. They're systematic intelligence gathering operations that have been cataloging human technological capabilities with precision that exceeds our own military surveillance systems. The data streams contain detailed assessments of our satellite networks, communication protocols, defense systems, and space-based infrastructure. Information that should have been impossible for any external observer to acquire without penetrating our most secure networks. Yet somehow, this hidden fleet near Mars has compiled intelligence profiles that surpass anything in our own databases. The methodology is what keeps intelligence analysts awake at night. Rather than crude electronic eavesdropping, these systems appear to be conducting quantum-level analysis of electromagnetic emissions that can reconstruct complete information from quantum fluctuations in our communication systems. They're reading data that we thought was theoretically unreadable, but the surveillance extends far beyond simple intelligence gathering. the Hidden Network has been conducting systematic behavioral analysis that suggests psychological profiling on a civilizational scale. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez at the RAND Corporation has been studying the correlation patterns between human activities and the positioning changes observed in the Mars orbital anomalies. His analysis reveals something that transforms this from a contact scenario into something resembling a decades-long scientific experiment. The hidden objects have been systematically testing human responses to various stimuli, unusual astronomical events, unexplained technological demonstrations, carefully timed revelations of advanced capabilities. Each incident designed to measure how human institutions react to phenomena that challenge established scientific frameworks. The psychological sophistication is staggering. Rather than overwhelming humanity with obvious evidence of advanced alien presence, the network has been gradually escalating the strangeness of their demonstrations, building up human tolerance for anomalous phenomena while studying our adaptive responses at every stage. It's behavioral conditioning on a species level, executed with patience that spans generations. The timeline analysis reveals the true scope of this operation. When researchers began correlating the Mars anomalies with historical astronomical data, they uncovered evidence suggesting this surveillance network has been operational far longer than anyone imagined. Dr. Jennifer Kim at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory has been reviewing archival observations dating back to the early space age. Her findings indicate systematic anomalies that correlate with major milestones in human technological development. The launch of Sputnik, the Apollo moon landings, the deployment of GPS satellites, the advent of the Internet. Each breakthrough in human capabilities coincided with increased activity from objects that were dismissed as routine asteroids or measurement errors. The pattern suggests a monitoring system that has been tracking human progress since we first began reaching towards space. The implications are profound because they indicate planning that operates on timescales measured in decades rather than years. Whatever intelligence is behind this operation has been preparing for eventual contact since humans first demonstrated spacefaring capabilities. But the most disturbing aspect isn't the surveillance itself. It's what the network appears to be preparing for next. The propulsion signatures detected near Mars have evolved from subtle maneuvering to demonstrations that can only be described as technological displays. Objects that were previously invisible are now allowing brief detection of capabilities that exceed human engineering by margins that make comparison meaningless. Gravitational wave detectors are recording disturbances that suggest controlled manipulation of space-time geometry. Power generation systems that operate at efficiency levels approaching theoretical perfection. Communication networks that maintain instantaneous coordination across interplanetary distances. These aren't accidental revelations. They're carefully orchestrated demonstrations designed to showcase specific technological capabilities while maintaining enough ambiguity to prevent panic or irrational responses from human institutions. Dr. Sarah Chen at MIT's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory has been analyzing the pedagogical structure embedded in these technological displays. The demonstrations follow educational principles that suggest understanding of human learning psychology, combined with strategic objectives that extend far beyond simple communication. The network is teaching humanity about advanced physics through practical examples, while simultaneously assessing our readiness to integrate such technologies into human civilization. It's a graduation exam disguised as first contact. The examination appears to be accelerating. Recent observations show the hidden objects transitioning from passive surveillance to active environmental modification around Mars. Gravitational anomalies that suggest large-scale engineering projects operating beyond our detection thresholds. Spectroscopic analysis of the Martian atmosphere has detected trace elements that don't match any known geological processes. Isotopic signatures that suggest industrial activity involving matter manipulation at the atomic level, chemical fingerprints that indicate manufacturing capabilities that exceed human technology by centuries. The environmental modifications appear designed to create optimal conditions for something that hasn't been revealed yet. Infrastructure development that suggests preparation for operations requiring precise environmental control across planetary scales. But perhaps most significantly, the modifications are being conducted using resources that were already present in the Martian system. Rather than importing materials from elsewhere, the network is demonstrating abilities to transform existing matter into whatever configurations their operations require. The resource utilization patterns suggest technologies that can manipulate matter at the quantum level while scaling up to planetary engineering projects. Manufacturing capabilities that operate by rearranging atomic structures rather than conventional industrial processes. Dr. Michael Thompson at Caltech's Materials Science Laboratory describes the observed capabilities as resembling programmable matter systems that can reconfigure themselves for different applications. Technologies that blur the distinction between materials and machines by operating at scales where the difference becomes meaningless. The strategic implications are staggering because they suggest capabilities that could transform the entire solar system according to engineering specifications that we can barely comprehend. Technologies that operate by manipulating fundamental forces rather than working within their constraints. As the hidden network continues revealing increasingly sophisticated capabilities, patterns are emerging that suggest we're witnessing the final phases of a contact protocol that has been developing for decades. The systematic progression from covert observation to technological demonstration to environmental modification suggests preparation for something that will fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with the cosmos. The question that haunts researchers across every relevant field is simple yet profound. If this network possesses technologies that exceed human capabilities by such dramatic margins, what are they preparing us for? And more importantly, are we ready for whatever comes next? The electromagnetic emissions from the Mars vicinity continue evolving towards something that resembles real-time strategic coordination. The hidden objects are no longer just monitoring human activities. They're actively preparing for scenarios that we can only guess at, while demonstrating capabilities that challenge every assumption about what's possible in terms of engineering and physics applications. The universe is revealing itself to be far more populated and far more strategically sophisticated than we ever imagined. And humanity is about to discover whether we're ready to join a cosmic community that has been patiently waiting for us to develop the sophistication necessary to recognize what has been hidden among the stars all along. The countdown to revelation continues with mechanical precision, marking our approach toward answers that will either confirm our readiness for cosmic citizenship or reveal how much we still need to learn about the realities of intelligence that spans the galaxy. The transformation happening in real time above Mars has moved beyond anything our theoretical frameworks can accommodate. What began as systematic surveillance has evolved into something that resembles preparation for an event that no human institution has protocols to handle. The electromagnetic signatures emanating from the hidden network have shifted from intelligence gathering to what can only be described as logistical coordination. The communication patterns now show characteristics typical of fleet management operations, with data streams that suggest resource allocation, positional assignments, and temporal synchronization across multiple platforms. Dr. Rebecca Foster at the Deep Space Communications Array has been monitoring these coordination signals using the most sensitive equipment available to human technology. The mathematical precision of the timing protocols exceeds anything in our satellite networks, showing synchronization accuracy measured in nanoseconds across distances spanning millions of kilometers. The coordination isn't random or exploratory. It's methodical, purposeful, and accelerating towards some predetermined objective that remains hidden from our understanding. Whatever the network is preparing for, it requires precise timing, and flawless execution across a scale that encompasses the entire Mars orbital system. But the communications represent just the surface layer of transformations that are reshaping our understanding of what's been operating in the shadows near the red planet. Gravitational monitoring stations have detected systematic changes in the mass distribution throughout Mars orbital space that suggest large-scale repositioning of objects with combined masses exceeding major asteroids. The gravitational signatures indicate a fleet of substantial vehicles maneuvering with precision that requires propulsion capabilities we can barely comprehend. The movement patterns show tactical characteristics that suggest defensive formations transitioning to operational deployment. Whatever strategic doctrine governs this network, it's implementing changes that prepare for scenarios requiring rapid response capabilities across interplanetary distances. Dr. Patricia Williams at the Gravitational Wave Observatory describes the signatures as resembling military logistics operations scaled to cosmic proportions. Fleet movements that demonstrate organizational sophistication combined with technologies that make distance and time constraints virtually irrelevant. The stealth capabilities that have kept this network hidden for decades are beginning to show selective degradation that appears intentional rather than accidental. Objects that remained invisible for months are now allowing brief detection windows that reveal capabilities designed to demonstrate rather than conceal. These technological glimpses follow educational progressions that suggest deliberate curriculum design, basic demonstrations of advanced propulsion leading to examples of matter manipulation, followed by displays of energy generation that exceed theoretical limits. Each revelation builds upon previous demonstrations while introducing concepts that expand human understanding of what's achievable through advanced engineering. The pedagogical sophistication indicates understanding of human learning psychology, combined with strategic objectives that extend across generational timescales. This isn't random technology display, it's systematic preparation for knowledge transfer that could accelerate human development by centuries if successfully implemented. But the most significant transformation involves what's happening to Mars itself. Atmospheric monitoring stations have detected chemical modifications that suggest industrial processes operating at scales that dwarf human manufacturing capabilities. Trace elements appearing in the Martian atmosphere indicate atomic-level manipulation of matter using techniques that exceed our material science by margins that make comparison meaningless. The atmospheric changes aren't random or chaotic. They follow systematic patterns that suggest environmental engineering designed to optimize conditions for the network plans to accomplish operational requirements. Whatever near Mars requires precise atmospheric composition and pressure characteristics that are being actively created through controlled industrial processes. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez at the Mars Atmospheric Research Center has been analyzing these chemical modifications using spectroscopic techniques that can identify molecular changes at parts per billion resolution. Her measurements indicate manufacturing processes that operate by rearranging atomic structures rather than conventional chemical reactions. The production techniques suggest technologies that blur the distinction between chemistry and physics by manipulating matter at quantum levels while scaling to planetary engineering applications. Industrial capabilities that treat atoms like construction materials that can be assembled according to engineering specifications. The resource extraction patterns visible in these atmospheric modifications reveal another layer of technological sophistication that challenges human understanding of what constitutes efficient manufacturing. Rather than mining raw materials and transporting them to processing facilities, the network appears capable of converting any available matter into whatever configurations their operations require. This programmable matter approach eliminates traditional concepts of supply chains and logistics by treating the entire Mars system as a reservoir of construction materials that can be reconfigured for different applications. Manufacturing flexibility that makes conventional industrial planning obsolete through technologies that operate at the fundamental level where matter and energy become interchangeable. The strategic implications extend far beyond immediate Mars operations because they suggest capabilities that could reshape entire planetary systems according to engineering requirements, technologies that operate by manipulating the basic building blocks of reality rather than working within natural constraints. But perhaps most unsettling is what these capabilities suggest about the civilization behind them. The patience demonstrated through decades of covert surveillance, combined with technologies that exceed human understanding by such dramatic margins, indicates strategic thinking that operates on cosmic timescales, planning that spans centuries or millennia, while maintaining tactical flexibility that allows adaptation to changing circumstances. The systematic approach to human contact suggests institutional sophistication that has encountered emerging civilizations before and developed protocols for managing first contact scenarios with minimal cultural disruption. This isn't improvised exploration. It's the execution of established procedures, refined through experience with species transitions across galactic history. The educational methodology embedded in the technological demonstrations shows understanding of how civilizations adapt to paradigm shifts that challenge fundamental assumptions about reality. The careful progression from subtle anomalies to obvious impossibilities suggests psychological preparation designed to prevent cognitive shock that could destabilize human institutions. This level of social engineering expertise indicates civilizations that have mastered not just advanced physics and engineering, but the complexities of cultural integration across species barriers. Technologies combined with wisdom that spans galactic evolution rather than merely planetary development. The environmental modifications continuing around Mars represent more than infrastructure development. They're creating optimal conditions for whatever form of direct interaction the network considers appropriate for humanity's current developmental stage. The precision of these preparations suggests scenarios that have been planned in extraordinary detail, accounting for human psychological limitations, technological constraints, and social adaptation requirements. Environmental engineering that creates ideal circumstances for controlled contact, rather than dramatic revelation. Dr. Michael Chen at the Planetary Engineering Institute describes the Mars modifications as resembling diplomatic preparation rather than military deployment. Infrastructure development that facilitates communication and interaction while maintaining safety margins that prevent accidental harm to human observers or equipment. The scale of preparation indicates contact scenarios that extend far beyond brief encounters or simple message exchange. The network appears to be creating facilities capable of supporting extended interaction programs that could span years or decades of gradual integration. But the most significant aspect of these preparations involves what they reveal about the network's assessment of human readiness for cosmic citizenship. The systematic progression from surveillance to demonstration to environmental preparation suggests that humanity has passed whatever evaluation criteria the network employs to assess emerging civilizations. The transition from covert observation to active preparation indicates conclusions about human technological and social development that warrant direct intervention. This represents a graduation moment in human history that most of our species remains unaware of. The network's behavior suggests that humanity has reached developmental milestones that qualify us for inclusion in whatever galactic community these technologies represent. The implications cascade through every aspect of human civilization because they suggest imminent transformation that will alter our understanding of science, technology, society, and our place in cosmic evolution. The careful preparation indicates changes that will be profound rather than superficial, fundamental rather than incremental. As monitoring stations worldwide document the accelerating preparations around Mars, researchers across every relevant field are confronting questions that extend beyond current scientific frameworks into philosophy, sociology, and the basic assumptions that define human civilization. The network's activities suggest that first contact will involve not just communication between species, but integration into cosmic communities that have been developing for timescales that span galactic evolution. Technologies that represent not just advanced engineering, but wisdom accumulated across millions of years of civilizational development. The countdown toward revelation continues with increasing urgency as the hidden network transitions from preparation to implementation of whatever contact protocol they consider appropriate for humanity's introduction to galactic civilization. The universe is about to become a very different place, and everything we thought we understood about our cosmic isolation is about to be fundamentally challenged. The final preparations suggest that whatever comes next will transform human civilization in ways that we're only beginning to comprehend, marking the end of our species' cosmic childhood and the beginning of our integration into communities that span the stars. The electromagnetic cascade that began on December 15th has forced every major space agency to activate protocols that were never supposed to be used outside of theoretical exercises. At 0347 UTC, the hidden network near Mars initiated what can only be described as a synchronized revelation event that has shattered the last vestiges of plausible deniability surrounding their presence. Dr. Elena Martinez at the Madrid Deep Space Communications Complex watched in stunned silence as her screens filled with signals that violated every assumption about how first contact should unfold. The electromagnetic emissions weren't coming from 7 discrete locations anymore. They were emanating from 43 distinct sources arranged in geometric formations that spanned the entire Mars orbital system. The signal architecture showed coordination that exceeded anything in human military communications. Instantaneous synchronization across millions of kilometers, data streams that maintained coherence despite interplanetary distances, and encryption protocols that adapted in real time to prevent human analysis, while simultaneously demonstrating their sophistication. But what transformed this from remarkable to terrifying was the content of the transmissions. The network wasn't just coordinating their own activities anymore. They were actively managing human space assets in ways that should have been impossible without direct access to our most secure control systems. Satellite trajectories were being subtly adjusted, communication protocols were being modified, and deep space monitoring equipment was being reconfigured to optimize observation of the unfolding events. The technical precision of this intervention exceeds anything in human cybersecurity frameworks. Rather than crude hacking or electronic warfare, the network appears capable of quantum-level manipulation of our information systems. They're rewriting our software at the fundamental level while leaving no traces that conventional security systems could detect. Dr. Robert Kim at the National Security Agency describes the intrusion methodology as resembling administrative access rather than hostile penetration. The network is treating human technological systems as components of their own infrastructure, making adjustments with the casual efficiency of routine maintenance operations. The psychological impact on mission controllers has been profound. Personnel who dedicated their careers to maintaining secure communications and satellite operations are discovering that their systems have been transparent to external observation for potentially decades. Every classified transmission, every strategic decision, every technological development has been monitored with precision that exceeds our own intelligence capabilities. But the revelation of comprehensive surveillance represents only the beginning of transformations that are reshaping the fundamental nature of human space operations. The gravitational signatures near Mars have evolved from subtle anomalies to obvious manifestations of technologies that operate according to principles we've never encountered. Objects with masses measured in millions of tons are maneuvering with precision that requires propulsion systems capable of generating thrust equivalent to our most powerful rockets while producing no detectable exhaust or thermal signatures. The energy requirements alone should be impossible to sustain, yet the network maintains these capabilities while simultaneously conducting operations that suggest power generation systems with virtually unlimited capacity. They're operating technologies that treat energy constraints as engineering choices rather than physical limitations. Dr. Sarah Chen at the Gravitational Wave Observatory has been tracking these mass movements using detection equipment originally designed to monitor cosmic phenomena like black hole collisions. The signatures she's recording indicate controlled manipulation of space-time geometry on scales that transform science fiction concepts into observable reality. The propulsion physics implied by these measurements extends far beyond theoretical frameworks into applications that suggest mastery of fundamental forces. Technologies that generate thrust by warping space rather than accelerating matter through conventional reaction mass principles. The evidence streaming back from Mars has shattered every comfortable assumption about humanity's place in the cosmic order. What began as routine observation of a single interstellar visitor has revealed a surveillance network that spans decades, possibly centuries, of patient monitoring and strategic preparation. We stand at the threshold of transformation. The hidden swarm near Mars represents not just advanced technology, but the careful orchestration of humanity's graduation into a galactic community we're only beginning to comprehend. Whether we're ready or not, the universe is about to become a very different place.